Hi, welcome to the special webinar by Facility Republic and Thousand Theories. My name is Kitikun Kajaseni. You can call me Kit. I'm the founder of Facility Republic and Thousand Theories. The people who do not know FR or Facility Republic, actually we are the social group that try to create a group of people who are working in the building environments to come and join together. And this is a free group. You guys can join us. I put the link on the chat box here. So feel free to click and join. Currently, we have about 2.5 thousand members to join to this group. And then we also have the YouTube channels to keep up all the valuable webinar that I made in the past. It's feel free, you can go ahead and check it out, and then you can take a look at it. There's a lot of information that we have a seminar in the past, and also I have the Thousand Theory platform. This is the platform for the people who are in the building profession. We will do the public course once a month, so you can check the latest information on the class or course that we put it on. So everybody's feel free to check out in the chat box that you can see, and you can click the links on. Okay. Tonight is Monday, May 20th, 2024. Facility Republic and Thousand Theory has conducted this free seminar. It's called Architecture in the Age of AI with Dr. Matias del Campo. Okay. We will take about 1.5 hours for this seminar. And the first hour will be my question that I'm asking to the guest speaker. And another half an hour will be the answer from the audience. So feel free if you would like to ask anything to our guest speaker, feel free to put the question in the chat box, and we'll pick it up and then ask the question in the second section. Okay. Before we bring you to the discussion, I would like to highlight that Facility Republic is a social media that try to networking people all together for the building professional in Thailand. We believe that the building will be more aesthetic, more safety, more practical, more environmental friendly if we could combine every knowledge together. For instance, in the architecture, engineering, Facility Republic, and the real estate developments. Tonight, I did not come here alone, but I also got one person who know a lot about what we are going to talk about today. This person is the professor in Chulalongkorn University, teaching at the Faculty of Architecture. She will be the co-host of these evenings. Please welcome Assistant Professor Dr. Valaiporn Nakapan. Hello,
Hello.
Dr. Valaiporn.
สวัสดีค่ะคุณกีต Hi everyone. I'm glad to be here, and I'm so excited to see the list of participants. My dean is here. อาจารย์สรายุทธทรัพย์สุขนะคะ สวัสดีค่ะ
Yeah.
And also some other participants I know พี่สรชัย สวัสดีค่ะ คุณอั๋นนะคะ Okay, glad to see everybody here.
Yeah. It's like you come back to the
Yeah,
the
since
living
last
room.
time, yeah, it was about parametric design, right?
Right.
Yeah, okay, glad to see you.
Would you like to talk a bit about the course you want to prepare for the couple of months?
Okay. I'm gonna host a workshop. It's on-site workshop at Chulalongkorn University on Saturday, 6th July this year. And it's the second workshop this year. Last one was in February, and like it lasted 6 hours altogether. Last time we had 50 participants. So yeah, we are expecting quite the same number of participants this time. So in this workshop, you're going to learn about what is a generative AI, the theoretical part of it, and also you will get to learn about prompt structure, how to write prompts, prompt engineering, and get the hand-on with the exercises. And this time is going to be very special because you're going to meet Dr. Matias del Campo in person in this workshop for his special lecture. So please enroll. And I will post the poster on the Facility Public website after this webinar.
That'll be
So
great.
please come. Yeah, please
I will
come.
help to share to a lot of our Facebook group as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. You are a partner that helps me a lot in this
So, oh yeah,
generative
I think
AI. Yeah.
the course workshop that you are making
Mhm.
actually Facility Public and Thousand Theory is a partner for that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your support.
Right. So I think is our audience may be ready to hear from our guest speaker today. Tonight we
Okay.
are pleased to have a great discussion by our guest speaker. He is associate professor and the lecturer of the Tubman College of Architecture and Urban Planning, and also director of the AR2IL, the Architecture and Artificial Intelligence Laboratories from University of Michigan. Please welcome Dr. Matias del Campo.
Hello, everybody.
Hi, Matias. Good to see you.
Hi, how are you?
Too. Thank you for
Thank you
very much for the invitation.
Yeah, great.
So where are you now?
I'm currently in Vienna, Austria.
Wow. Yeah, but you teach in Michigan and then you spend a few weeks in Vienna per year, right?
Exactly. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
So once we are finished with our thesis and we have our commencement, I basically can go and visit friends and family back home.
Wow, great. And then you're coming to Bangkok for
and then
holiday.
I come to Bangkok. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Great. We get to see you in person.
Yeah,
so Saudi Krab, everybody.
Okay. I think we probably ask a question that we would like to ask Dr. Matthias then. Start with me. I have some question that I would like to ask. The first question is, as far as I learned from Dr. Valaiporn, that Dr. Matthias is a big name in parametric designs. But all of a sudden, one day, your interest in parametric design is going lower and lower and lower, less and less. And then your interest in AI become more and more. Okay. So we would like to learn from you how did your journey into the intersection of AI and architecture begin? What is inspiring you? Dr. Matthias, you
Thank you for the great question. I had to think for a second. So how to answer this question the best way, because this change did not happen overnight, right? It took a while. So I have to admit that when I was a student in Vienna, I already was in touch with an AI laboratory here in Vienna, the OFI, Austrian Institute of Artificial Intelligence. And we're talking here about back in the 90s. And we had these discussions. So Sandra Manninger, who founded SPAN, our company, together with me, she actually introduced me to them. She was the first one to be interested in AI.
Right.
And one of her friends back then was studying artificial intelligence. And we were sitting together and basically just speculating, how could we use this in architecture at all, right? And back then, you could not do so much because just the computational power was not enough, and the algorithms were not yet developed that became interesting later. So parametric design was one part of my work, but you might have noticed I never published a paper on parametric design. I never published a book on parametric design.
Right.
I never talked about myself as being a parametricist. Never did. I know that other people did. Other people did about my work, which is fine. They can say whatever they want. Yeah. So then when I moved to Michigan to teach, I had the chance to very quickly start to work together with the computer science department and the robotics department and the department for data science. And the collaboration was designed so that we can start creating workflows for architecture that include artificial intelligence. And again, this was before things like Midjourney came along. This was before this whole explosion of AI in 2022. So this has been ongoing now for the last about 10 years. Yeah. And so that's how this whole idea started to evolve. But the most interesting part for me, and maybe one of the reasons why I was never so interested in parametricism as a design and style idea, is that I always thought parametricism is very exclusive. It's a shape, it's a formal language that really, on the one side, says exclusivity because of its materials and shapes and the complexity that it has. And I always thought this might not be the best architecture for the world, generally speaking. I'm interested in inclusivity. Like, I want to include people, not exclude them. And so I was looking for a design method that allows to discuss a variety of different problems, not necessarily from a formalist's point of view, but rather from a technology point of view that will benefit, hopefully, more people. So that was, and another aspect for me was also, how do you create an inclusive culture? So it's not only about the technology and how you apply AI. It's also about how different cultures can operate with the same tool and still create something that is uniquely theirs, that is unique to their culture. So these sort of things are what I'm interested in, and I've been trying to work through in the last couple of years by, on the one side, with the laboratory in Michigan, the ARIL laboratory, creating workflows that are inclusive, creating workflows that hopefully will benefit many people. And then on the other side, also discussing, what does it mean for culture? What does it mean for ontology? What does it mean for epistemology inside this sort of new paradigm of design? And so this is how this is how my role in AI evolved over time.
Okay, that's very interesting. So you think that AI, artificial intelligence, is more like you can democratize the use of it more than parametric design, right?
Yes,
for everybody.
you have to think about this. Conventional computational design tools that you use, and I'm not going to say specific names of softwares, but when you use a software to do designs, most of the time it's a closed system. You can operate within that. Yeah, you do your designs in there, you do your 3D models in there, you do your drawings in there, and so on. It's a closed system. Now, the contrast is that with artificial intelligence, we can create entirely open systems that actually allow you not only to be within that small sphere of your software, but actually allows you to get influence from outside criteria into your design, ecology, economy, politics, and so on. Yeah. So this creates a system that is much more capable of encapsulating important parameters for architectural design. Yeah. That are not just, your talent of being able to manipulate a shape in a software. Does it make sense?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
that actually lead to my next question. I'd like to ask you, can you explain how AI can generate unseen architectural ideas that would have been impossible for human alone to conceive?
That's a great question.
I think I heard from you. You talk about the entrenchment, right?
There's like estrangements. There's also the estrangement, the navigation of the latent space, which I think is super interesting.
Yeah,
so these are all like
microscope or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite fascinating that we're currently starting to use a method of designing that allows us to see things that we did not see before, which does not necessarily mean that they're new. And I'm going to try to explain that.
Mm-hmm.
What AI does, or what many of these tools do, I would rather prefer to call it machine learning, by the way, but it's okay, we can stay with AI. What it does is basically you have a data set, right? You have thousands of images, for example, or millions, or sometimes even billions of images of architecture in a data set. Yeah. And these are all known architectural pieces, right? I mean, they're all around the world. They've been photographed, they're renderings of projects that existed before, and so on. So these are all known architectural solutions, right? But the amazing thing is that machine learning can start to interpolate between those different points. So if you imagine it like this, imagine a cube, okay? A cube.
Yeah.
And in this cube, you have randomly distributed in the space inside the cube are points, random points. Each one of those points is one data point of your data set, an image or a mathematical number or text. Yeah. So these are like these different things are inside that box. Now you're asking that box something. Like, for example, show me a building with elephant ears.
Okay.
Right? Let's say that's a prompt. Now, what this machine learning process will do is it will start to navigate in a curve through that cube. Yeah. And it will try to come as close as possible to the points that best represent your prompt. Yeah. This is called curve fitting. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's different ways to, I mean, it can perform in different ways. Computer scientists say there's underfitting, robust, and overfitting. So curve fitting can be either underfitting, robust, or overfitting. Computer scientists normally try to get a robust result, which is a useful, logical result that they understand and that they can apply to something. Like, for example, if they train a car to see the street, yeah, they train it well enough that it starts not to see other things on the street, but it sees the street, it sees the other car, it recognizes a pedestrian, okay? But in architecture and in the arts, what you can do is push that curve. We can push it out of balance, so to say. Yeah. Once we do that and we go into something that is closer to underfitting, the machine starts to hallucinate stuff. Yeah. So it starts to show you like this estranged, defamiliarized, darker corners.
Weird thing.
Exactly, it hallucinates. Yeah. It starts to hallucinate stuff, right? Now, the hallucination in itself is interesting because the human, the user, me, yeah, I can see that hallucination and I say like, ha, that is interesting. That is cool. That is different. It's new to me. I mean, it was always there in that cube with the points. Yeah. But I have a tool, which is the curve fitting, which allows me to look into these dark areas of that latent space where all the things are that are different and interesting and exciting. Some are useful, some are not.
And that can be valuable.
Exactly, but it still can be valuable. Yeah. Yeah. So this is where back to Kit's question. It does not necessarily create completely new things. Yeah. But it can show us areas of the latent space that we did not know as humans. Although it was always there, we had to put the light on it to see it.
Right. I think,
or as Svalaporn said before, it's like a microscope or a telescope. Yeah. It can show us things we couldn't see before, although they were there.
It can show you radical ideas.
Because art, at the end of the day, it's just like a mix of some different things that existed before. And like we try to give it a new meaning, right? So we can hardly create something totally new that never existed in the human history, but like try to implement things that was already there and look at it in a new way. And that's what AI does in creativity, I think. All right.
I mean, there's a theorist in computer science. I don't know if she's computer science or neuroscience, one of the two. Margaret Bowden. Margaret Bowden
She's a cognitive scientist.
Cognitive scientist.
Yeah.
She wrote a book that basically describes like different forms of creativity, and one, for example, being subjective creativity and more like a historical. I think she calls it historical creativity, which means if, for example, you, while you're born, if you have never seen a wheel, if you've never seen a wheel, yeah, and you invent a wheel, that's a huge thing. It's a huge thing for you, right? It's a huge discovery,
right?
But for no one else in the world, because everyone else knows the wheel,
right?
Do you understand?
Right.
So it's an important discovery for you, but for nobody else. Then there is the other, this historical creativity, which is things that are really new, really profoundly new. Things like, for example, the theory of relativity by Albert Einstein. Things that change entirely the way we see the world. So these innovations, these creative new ideas are very, very rare. Yeah.
Right.
And in a way, also AI in itself, I don't think that AI can be creative in that way, not in the historical creativity way. But again, it can find things that were already there, which we didn't just see before, which for us might appear creative, right? But in
it
fact,
may
it's
take
not.
like 100 years for a human to discover this. With computational power, it can take much less time to discover these things, right?
Right.
Okay, I have another question. What are the most significant breakthrough in AI-driven architectures that you have witnessed in the recent years? Have you seen anything that really come from the AI-driven yet?
There is surprisingly little, to be honest. So I think we're still learning how to deal with this whole new paradigm.
Yeah,
we have not understood it yet as a discipline. I don't think we have understood it yet, like what it means for us, what it means for architectural production, what it means for building, what it means for building code. Yeah.
right.
I think we're starting to understand those things. But in terms of there were a couple of things I think that were really important in regards of like using AI in architecture. I mean, okay, I don't know how to say this the best way without sounding like I'm showing off. Yeah. But I mean, I mean, I think one of the things that was important was when 2022, a couple of books came out, right? So the machine hallucinations came out that I did together with Neil Leach. My own, the neural architecture book came out, which is basically like a basic book trying to understand what it means for architecture and culture. And then there were a couple of really interesting papers that came before that. So I remember seeing a paper being presented at the Arcadia conference in Mexico City, which must have been 2018. Yeah.
Wow.
I think this was Hao Zhang. Yeah. He showed a paper about plan generation with AI. And I thought that, okay, this is really incredible work. And all of this was possible because in the years before that, starting 2015, 16, 17, a couple of really, really important algorithms were published. Generative adversarial networks came out in 2015. Graph convolutional neural networks, which we used to do the first 3D attempts in AI, came out in 2017. Yeah. So, and then with the rise of diffusion models in 2022, the whole thing's exploded, basically. Yeah. And I have to say, but I'm a bit critical about this because I think that the image generators are probably the least important discovery for architecture
Mm.
in the last 10 years or so.
The least,
It's
the
fun.
the most known,
It does.
by the way.
It's very well known, but I don't think it's the most important. I think it's fun. It's cool to use it and so on. You can do a lot of funny stuff with it. But honestly, I still think that you can do probably more interesting things using a 3D GAN or using neural radiance fields, for example, or like there's a ton of other algorithms and research which I think is actually more important for architecture than the image generators. The image generators are fun, no doubt about it. Yeah, but if I want to do something good with architecture, like really profoundly different and good, I think that, for example, a 3D GAN is much more interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
Also, the general knowledge about AI in architecture is still low. I still like most people don't know how it actually works. Most people still think that it's a black box that does mysterious stuff, which is not really true. And also, I think in the vast majority of the architecture discipline, the interest for AI stops with ChatGPT and Midjourney. And then they don't look further, but we have to look further. We have to look behind that, and we have to understand how do we make those tools available to us and customize them for us for architecture.
Yeah, and that's exactly some of the participants in my previous workshop, they get feedback. They say, "Oh, that's all. Is that all we can do? Just generate images?" Like it was something that was like very like we get a hand on it.
There's
We are
one
not
important
there
thing
yet
to be said
in
about this.
3D.
Yeah, I mean, there's one more thing to be said about this because yes, we actually can do much more. We can. Yeah. The problem is that it needs much more work. That you need, you have to start to collecting your own data. You have to like customize the data to your needs. You need to label the data. You have to train the neural network, and you have to train it for weeks and months so that it works better. And then you have to like, evaluate whether it works. And like all of these steps take time. It's not like with Midjourney that you type in something or use a couple of images and then you have a result in 20 seconds. If you really want to work with AI properly and in a more scientific and more responsible way, you need to take your time.
Yeah.
Hey, the project that you made, the doghouse, is that made from AI as well?
Yeah.
I mean, the doghouse was basically an attempt to figure out whether we can really use an image generator to create sections and then out of the sections build a model. And it worked. So for us, the most important part in that research was how to translate the 2D information that you have in pixels in an image into a three-dimensional model that you can build. Because once you figure out how to build a model, you can build in reality.
Yeah.
That's cool.
That's what an architect is looking for, like not only 2D, but translate that into 3D and probably ask an engineer to run finite element and turn that into components that can be buildable and then do some fabrication about it, right?
Yeah, I think
Not
that's
just like pretty
gonna be
images.
the next step.
I'm actually doing a workshop at Tongji for the Digital Futures this year in July. Where we be working with students with this method that we're using the same method we use for the doghouse. And the reason to do that is because it's a method that I can teach people in 3 days or so. Yeah, that works. Any other method, like using 3D GANs or graph convolutional neural networks or tree GAN or something like that, I would need those students for a year. So
this becomes a work of a specialist.
Yeah, no, but for example, when I teach thesis in Michigan, for example, thesis studio in Michigan is 1 year. So it's not like 1 semester, it's 2 semesters. It's 1 semester is thesis seminar and 1 semester is thesis studio to design something based on the seminar. This is for me the perfect way to do it because I can keep those students for 1 year. And then at the end, they're using 3D GAN and Graph CNN and all these kind of different AI methods that are 3D GANs and so on. So that's the idea. The idea is to stay with me in the studio for 1 year, and then they can really use AI properly.
Wow.
But for a workshop, the doghouse thing is enough. That works.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay, let's move on to the other questions. Let's get more into realities. One thing that we learn is one of the process in design when architecture is working with the homeowner or the building owners, they need to understand what they need, right? So the question is how AI can help the architects better understanding and respond to the user needs and behaviors in the designs.
That is a very tricky question because here we're getting into ethics, right? I mean, if, for example, theoretically speaking, I could collect all the data of the customer that is available online, all his postings on Facebook, all his postings on Instagram, all his things on LinkedIn, his every single footprint that he has left on the internet. I could collect all of that.
Yeah.
And then basically run, there's a couple of algorithms that help me analyze that data to understand what this person likes. Yeah. And I could really like get like which kind of materials does he or she like, or this family like. You know, what kind of like what are the pictures these people take of architecture, for example? It might tell you what they like, right? And you could even automatize that. You can actually automatically sort those images by style, for example. Yeah. So it would be rather easy to do that. Yeah. And it would be it probably would give you quite interesting and useful results. However, there is an ethical problem, right? Because just because you can't do that, should you do it? Should you, you know, scrape the information of the person off the internet and use it for your own gain? So this is a question that I think every individual architect will have to ask himself or herself when using AI. Like, how far is it okay to use publicly available data? And where is the threshold to something that might feel creepy and weird? So I think you have to find the right balance there. Yeah, you have to be really careful, like how are you dealing with this? And also on the other hand, I'm wondering whether this automated method would give you more insights than if you, for example, talk to this person in person, like every architect does with a client normally, right? So it's a question, what is the more useful way to go? I have to say, just because you can use that technology does not mean that you have to use the technology. There might be ways to get to the result easier and faster. I tell this also to my students. If they want to cut paper, they don't need to use a laser cutter. They also can use that with a normal blade, yeah, and probably even faster if it's a straight line. So it's you have to select the tools properly according to the task that you want to fill. However, there's another case that I would say would be more interesting in that problem. It's right now we were talking about one client who wants maybe a one family housing project or something, right? But what if your client is a bank or the government? Yeah. In these cases, I think it makes sense to scrape the data that you need for a specific project, like a hospital or a train station, or I don't know, like, you know, or a bank or an office building. If you collect all the data that you can get from this client, who is a public entity anyways, it's not a private person, right? If it's a public entity, then it makes total sense to me to do that because it would allow you to process far more larger amounts of data that inform your project in a higher way. So it will really contribute to the quality of your design.
All right. And did your student do that? Like, did they scrape data for a public project? They did, right?
Yes, they did. They have done this several times already. It's like two things they do. Like one is scraping data, the other one is really building their data sets from scratch. Like, for example, there is not many 3D data sets out there for architects. So my students most of the time have to build their own data sets to get somewhere with it.
Wow.
So actually, it's not a bad idea to let AI help to scrap the data, though. Some of the application will help architect a lot, right?
I mean, I would say, I want to say it depends.
Mm.
Yeah. If you can morally and ethically support it, absolutely do it. If you have questions whether it's exactly, so if you have questions whether this is ethically correct, then don't do it. It's up to you at the end.
I see. Okay, let's move on to another question. I think we learned that AI is really good to create something aesthetic, something beautiful. Okay, but when we talk about the buildings, they also have one side is the form and the other side is a function. It has to be practical. So how could you balance the creative aspect with the practicalities of the building design when you're using AI?
Yes, this is again something where we're pretty much at the beginning of how to do this, because the problem is that you cannot solve every single problem at once with any sort of machine learning process. It's different processes, one after the other, like concatenated, meaning they're chained to each other, yeah, that allow you basically to go into more detail of the project. So we have, for example, in our office, where we made the experience that we can use AI or machine learning to create an exterior. We can use it to create an interior, but you cannot use it to do both things at once, for example. Yeah. This has been solved in the meantime, but this is a couple of years ago. But that again gave us opportunities as designers, because when you create an exterior first that has a certain aesthetic quality, and then you create the interior and you overlap them, right? You have the interior and you have like the wrapper around it. You of course have something like poché spaces between them. And poché spaces are also an opportunity to do architecturally interesting spaces and things, right? So instead of being annoyed that the AI cannot generate everything at once, we saw it as an opportunity to do something that is different and interesting and exciting. So this is, by the way, a very human quality. AIs cannot do that yet. This where you're human and you have a problem, and instead of thinking, oh, it's a problem, I can never solve it, you're like, hey, wait a second, if I turn it around like that, I can use it, and it's super cool. It's different. This is a very human quality, like recognizing the opportunity in a mistake.
Yeah.
Well,
so like to your question, Keith, again, these are all questions that are not completely solved yet. Yeah, but every day we're getting closer to solving those.
Right. I believe that too. I think every new change also have a learning curve. So today they got into one aspect, but tomorrow they will probably cover both of them, even form and function. I believe so. So
I mean, you can do that already. I mean, as individual problems, you can solve them already now using artificial intelligence. Like, for example, right now we are working on the optimization of hospital floor plans with AI. Yeah. Wow. So you totally can do that.
That's true. That's true. There's one question I think I used to ask you before offline. I would like to ask you now in front of the audience. So how does AI contribute to create more sustainable and environmentally friendly building design? Because, nowadays we're demanding to get the building more green than before.
Yeah. I mean, to be very, very honest with you, if you really want to be sustainable as an architect, there's one very simple solution. Don't build. Yeah, that's the most sustainable way to serve the planet. Just don't build.
You are the architects.
But if you want to build and be sustainable using AI, you have a couple of options. So there's two things that AI can do really, really well. One is optimization, and two is prediction. Yeah, prediction. These are the two. Yeah, these are the two things that it can do really well.
That's
when it is about when we're talking about sustainability, like, of course, if you use machine learning to optimize the material consumption of the building, the energy consumption of the building, the ventilation qualities within the spaces so that you don't have to use so much energy on AC, for example. So there's a whole series of things you can do using machine learning to optimize the energy consumption of a building. Now, there's more things you can do. I told you that there's one thing is optimization, the other one is prediction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now imagine that you can use, there's like a variety of different energy-based models, for example, that are really great for prediction. Meaning that you can plan your building and you can predict the behavior of the building throughout its entire lifetime until it gets demolished.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's say 40 years, 50 years, 30 years, whatever it is. And you can actually, by doing so, you can predict how the building will perform in terms of energy consumption over the period of 40 years. That's incredible, because that means that you have the possibility to optimize the building towards how it will perform over time in regards to its impact to the environment. That is great, but it's not everything. There's more.
Wow.
One more thing you can do is, once the building has achieved its entire lifetime and the moment it is there that you have to demolish it, you know that architecture or the building industry is profoundly bad in recycling. Yeah. Most of the time we demolish something and we take a little bit out of steel, maybe a little bit of glass, and the rest goes into the landfill.
Right.
Yeah. That is unsustainable. It's unsustainable. You cannot, if you want to do something sustainable, you cannot do that. So what you can do is you can train a machine, with machine vision, to understand, when it's looking onto the demolition site, what is the different materials in that pile of rubble that I have there. And you can use, for example, industrial robots to sort these materials.
I see.
Right?
Wow.
So you sort them out, and you can basically put them back into use, reducing the carbon footprint of your entire building throughout its entire lifetime. And there's more. It's not everything. There's one more.
Wow.
Instead of just sorting the material, you can use, again, machine vision, not only to sort the material, but to build with the rubble.
Wow.
Because, and this is a project we have in our lab currently being researched. We're pretty far, where you can basically train, you use simply a camera and a machine vision. And yes, it's a computer vision process where the machine can actually recognize, for example, pieces of bricks, and then can rotate those bricks around and lay them out into
like
new
Lego
walls.
pieces or something.
Yeah,
They can
but it's broken Lego. But it's broken Lego. So there's bits and pieces and chunks, and so you see, like, there's so many options how to use artificial intelligence or machine learning to make a more sustainable architecture discipline. I completely believe that's possible. But it's going to be a lot about, it's not going to be so much about the architects, because we know that works. I know that works. And I've said it, and I've told people that we can do that. The problem is the construction industry, because they're really greedy. And when you're greedy, it's very hard to change something if you're making a lot of money with it. So if they're making a lot of money with how they're building now, they're not going to change it. So I can tell you as much as I want that we can be more sustainable as a discipline. If the building industry doesn't follow, it's useless.
Right.
Just an example of what we can do, and then we're gonna have a look.
That's quite.
Let me add one more thing about this.
Yeah, please.
We as architects should never think that we're the decision makers. We're not. Yeah, we only can advise, but we need people who listen.
We had to listen to the clients. We had to listen to the constructors. And
no, they have to listen to us.
You just we brought some thought inside myself. AI probably can bring you some more options of what you can do with the old buildings. I think if we want to be sustainable, actually we build less, right? So basically we should build whatever we have, or maybe just remain most of the stuff
Mhm.
there and then change something else to fit our needs. So basically, AI probably can help to fill this gap by creating some more option and alternatives, and then
Deal with
give you some
less. Yeah.
give you some
Less
idea to
carbon
do less.
footprint. Mhm.
That's a great
I would
thinking.
second Matias because I just came back from a conference and Kadria in a
Yeah,
city in Singapore,
awesome.
and all the researchers, are going in the AI trend and even in the sustainable area, sustainable design. They use AI to optimize like um, building carbon footprint, the energy consumption, do the prediction. It's all in the trend already. Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, the next question is focus on the challenge and the opportunities. Okay, I want to talk about the challenge first. What challenge do architects face when integrate AI to their design workflow, and how can this be overcome?
I mean, the biggest challenge, and I've been talking about this for years now, the biggest challenge that we have as architects is the lack of bespoke data sets for our own purposes.
Mhm.
You have to think that it's not done with collecting a bunch of architecture images and then trying to generate something. That's a very superficial way of working with AI. What we need are bespoke, well-designed, well-annotated 3D data sets, for example. We need a lot of floor plans that are annotated so we can actually work with them. We need tons of structural data that we can use in AI, but it has to be uh, um, structured data, meaning it has to be organized, it has to be ordered, it has to be labeled. This is a lot of work.
Mm.
And that understanding does not exist in the architecture discipline yet. Everyone
I
sees like image
believe
generators and ChatGPT, and
they have done this in China. Look X with the public building.
yes, but these are like there's also problems with that because these are first of all they're comparably small data sets, and we need more data to get reliable results. And the second one is that you have to differentiate between organically generated data and synthetically augmented data. So, and as far as I understand, I cannot promise this is true, so I apologize to Wan Yuhei right away if I'm wrong about this. But if I understand right, the XCool data set is a very small amount of organically generated data and a very big amount of synthetically generated data, which occasionally, not always, but occasionally can falsify the result. Yeah, and even so, is that data set freely available? Can I download it and work with it? I don't think so.
No, not yet.
They will charge money for that, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
Public.
So you see, I mean, there is three.
You want public data
exactly.
set,
So we need
right?
to make all of this public so people can work with it. Yeah, of course. Like, I mean, this is the big difference between architecture, for example, and computer science. In computer science, you write a paper that you publish with the data set that is publicly available because you want actually others to prove that your data set is really helpful. Yeah, exactly. There's like in computer science, in science generally, there's a far bigger understanding that sharing will help us make progress. Yeah. And unfortunately, this sentiment does not exist in architecture. In architecture, still everyone thinks, oh, why should I share my data? It's my IP, and it would just cost me money if I share it, right? That's because we don't have the scientific method of thinking, yeah? And also because, of course, like a computer science laboratory might get funding from the government to do this data set with the condition that the data set is then publicly available. So we need to change the culture in architecture in order to make progress with AI. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, if we do not share data, if we do not share plans, if we don't help annotating, we're not going to get anywhere with AI in architecture. Or it's going to end
with people
like me, having my own data sets because I've been working on this for years, just keeping them for myself, and basically be faster and better than the competition, and basically making a lot of architects jobless.
Or
So
some
you have the
other
choice.
some
You start, you have
architectural
the choice.
firms.
You can share, you can share, and maybe make progress all together, or you don't share, and then it's people like me who is actually doing the data sets who's gonna be making you out of business. Because it's, you understand, it's either sharing or
for educational purpose,
perish.
I think it's very crucial to have this kind of data set for the student.
Of course,
to learn.
yes,
but
of course,
in
but
professional world, I don't believe like an architectural firm are willing to give their own data set to the public, because
but I can tell
their
you,
own style.
those companies are gonna have a hard time in the next coming years. You have to understand how the world is changing. The world is changing. We cannot work as architects how we have done it in the last 40, 50 years. The star architect is dead. The idea of the sole genius is dead. We have to understand that doing architecture is far more something about community and a communal effort than a solo effort. As soon as the architects start to understand that, we might be finally ready to go for the next step in architectural evolution.
So what you say is that
sorry, I didn't want to scare anyone.
Yeah, that's okay. That's a truth. That's a scary truth.
I didn't want to scare anyone. I really don't like the fear mongering.
I think the most important point is the data set. That creating the AI to work better and more functional to the practical works. So basically, if we have that kind of data set, we can translate from the old building that we built in the past, do whatever we have to do, put the line and point, and then put this all together as a data set, and then maybe building some gigantic data set. It might work, right? So basically, if we have a tons of data, so everybody can just training the AI and then can cultivate the benefit of it.
Each architect think that the work is their own creativity. Why should they give it away to the public? As an engineer, maybe you don't think this is important, but I can see that as an architect, we think that is our intellectual property.
I see.
Yeah.
I think that's just a matter of education and being used to it. Like, for example, I was educated in architecture decades ago, and I understand that I cannot keep the data for me anymore because it doesn't make sense. It's just a matter of understanding what it means. And I have the feeling a lot of people have not understand this yet, but it will come. It will come. I mean, it's inevitable. Things change. Like my argument is always when those Gothic cathedrals were built, tell me one name of one architect of a Gothic cathedral. No one knows because they are not known. This was a communal effort. This was people sharing know-how, sharing how to build stone and so on. So it's this idea of the sole genius of I have to keep my creations for me because they're my creations, right? This is such a 19th century romantic German idea. I don't think it fits anymore to 21st century thinking. So it will change. It will change. Also, again, if it doesn't change, if these people do not change, and I really don't like to say that because I really don't like to make people afraid of AI, but if they don't change it, somebody else will change it for them. And this would be construction. So it's going to be construction companies, investors. They're going to just take over. We're going to say, hey, I don't need you as architect because I have now these data sets. I can basically generate as much architecture as I want. So why should I pay you for something I can do on my own, right? So if we as architects do not start to understand that this is really a major game changer happening, we will be displaced, period.
To the next question. This question is, I need to ask you, do you foresee AI as a collaborative tool for architects or the potential replacements for human creativity.
Potential threat.
Yeah. Yes, I was already on the way there, obviously, with my last response. But I mean, again, I'm not a fan of fear mongering and like saying, oh, AI is so evil and it will displace us and so on. I don't think that's fair to do. It's just a technology. So it's a question whether we as humans and we as architects do what humans do really well, which is adapt to the situation. Yeah. Adaptability is one of the main traits of humanity. And I think we will adapt to it. Yeah. So I don't, and it's always the same thing, you know, that people either adopt the technology or are left behind. This is not the first time, right? I mean, in the Industrial Revolution, people started to throw their shoes into the weaving machines because it was taking away their jobs, right? Did it change anything in automation, having like automatic textile machines? No, it didn't. So all these ideas of resisting AI and so on, yeah, okay, you can try. But I think the more intelligent way is to make it your own, like form it the way you need it to be for you as a designer, right? I think that's the better idea than rejecting it entirely. Like it's the same, like tell me how many architects you know who do not use a computer because they rejected it.
Yeah,
it's not human. I want to draw my plans with ink. Which architect does this today? So we all adapted to using computers, and we also can adapt to using AI.
Yeah.
So nobody can stop
get
change, right? These things come, and then we should.
I have a former student of mine. She wrote a letter, I think, about me. And in that letter, she said something which I thought was quite interesting. She said, no one waits for progress. And I think that's very crucial in this conversation. No one waits
for progress.
Like, no, the other way around. I'm so stupid. Sorry. No, progress. Progress. Yeah, progress waits for no one. That was it. Progress waits for no one. The other way around.
With or without you.
Progress waits for nobody.
Kunkit, will I get to ask my question?
Yeah. Please go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one for you. And you have quoted this statement by the philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein in many of your lectures. Says that the limits of my language means the limit of my world. And how is the domain knowledge crucial for a successful application of generative AI? And do you believe that an experienced artist can prompt and generate AI art better than an amateur?
That's a very good question. You are onto something there. So Wittgenstein's quote very often is understood as, so if the limits of your language is the limits of your world, it also means that once the limit of your language is reached, you have to be quiet, so to speak, right? But this is the common way of interpreting that idea. I do not interpret it that way. I interpret it differently. I interpret it as that the limits of my language mean the limits of my world means also that if you want to expand your world, you have to invent the language. Yeah. Yeah. So it's not just
the domain. The domain.
Exactly. So it doesn't stop only in being able to speak the language. If you have to describe something that is outside the sphere of your language, you have the possibility to invent the language that describes that. Yeah. And that's how I like to see that. And it means also, for example, for prompting, that you have to expand what you think about a particular area of your knowledge. But I also have to say that I agree, or I would say that when you ask whether a professional artist can do a better prompt than an amateur, then you have to differentiate again with this idea of language. Because if the amateur can speak better and understands language better than the pro, then he might be able to do something more interesting with it because he can master language as a tool of describing something. However, there's a caveat here. Which is that I think the professional might have a better chance of getting a more solid result out of an image generator because of the education that this person has. In order to describe something properly, you need to be able to have the vocabulary, right? And if I know the vocabulary in the arts means differentiating styles, differentiating artists, differentiating color palettes, differentiating techniques, etc. Exactly. To the point even that you describe also camera lenses to achieve particular effects in Midjourney, for example, right? So your knowledge about the world and your knowledge about art definitely will help you in steering the result in a particular direction. I have also to say that people should be a little bit more patient with Midjourney. Some people just do one prompt and think that's it, and I take the result and I put it on my Instagram, right? In my experience, most of the times, the first result out of Midjourney is not the best one. You have to continue prompting with the same prompt, reroll, until something shows up that is interesting. Then you're like, I'm going to take this picture, I'm going to put it in my prompt, and then I'm going to add a couple of things to that. So this is, in my opinion, rather the creative way of working with Midjourney. It's like this like massaging and fighting almost, with Midjourney to get an interesting image out of it. And I've spent days sometimes without a good result.
Of course.
Yeah.
It's never the first prompt that comes out good.
So that's why I'm saying people need to have more patience or have more, I don't know, artistic ambition or artistic obsession, to get to an interesting result, right? But it takes time. It's nothing that comes immediately. It's the same, by the way, with ChatGPT. If you ask ChatGPT to write a text very simply, you will get a pretty mediocre text out of it, because it's in my experience, like always the same. The first proposal I get from ChatGPT is always like, oh my God, that's so bad. and then you start to work, with it. It's really like working with a person. You're like, hey, buddy, this is not so great. Maybe we're gonna go more in this direction, and don't do it so floral and so poetic. A little bit more pragmatic, And then you do that, and then the next iteration is a little bit better, and then you go back and say, it's better, but we need to move it. Like, write it a little bit more like
this kind of tool allow you the artist to interact more and get more the feedback loop faster than traditional technique, right? You cannot like do the painting and then scrap it off and then do another one, changing a little bit. It takes days to do that. But with the AI tool, you can take seconds.
This whole idea, there's so many art forms that really work through iteration, right? And architecture is one of them. I mean, we work with iterations. If you think like traditionally, like an architect sitting down and drawing a plan with a pen on a paper, you draw like a first sketch, which is and then the next one, and then the next one, and then the next one, and then this is interesting. That's getting in the right direction. So you start to iterate, even with a pen and a paper. That's very much in architecture. So I think that's, by the way, one of the things why Midjourney and ChatGPT are so popular with architects, because it really works with that iterative method
the way we work.
anyways.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you so much. To get this idea of not only the knowledge domain that an expert needs to know, but also the ability to create the language, to reinvent the language as well. That helps with prompting. Okay, Kun Kit, maybe we can move to the users. The participants.
I think time's come. We have to go into the second section.
Questions.
We welcome everyone in the rooms now. If you guys have any question, you can drop in the chat box, and then we will ask this question to Dr. Matias. Okay, but I have a lot of questions that people are giving me during the registration, and I'm gonna read to you. Dr. Matias, you can answer it. If you cannot answer it, just pass it. Okay. Okay.
I'm sure you can.
It's a tough question. A lot of good question. The first one, they said, what impact of AI would do to the future of architecture's design study? is there any ethical issue in the education?
That's a very good question. I have to say that there's several people that are already trying to figure that out. I have to say there's already a lot of literature out there about AI and education, but it's not necessarily about education in architecture. It's about education in physics, education in history, whatever, like tons of different things. I also it's interesting to see how different disciplines are responding to this challenge. So, for example, in the humanities, they're very nervous about the use of AI because it really goes to the core of their discipline, like
art,
history, art. Not art necessarily, but humanities meaning English, languages, history.
yes.
And then others, for example, in the creative industries, the creative domain in education is obviously a little bit more relaxed about it. So if you go to graphics, painting, animation and so of course. I mean, everything that has to do with computers, they're basically embracing it. So there's like different levels of anxiety, I would say, in terms of using AI in education. I think that we have no way around it. We have to figure out how to deal with it because we know that every student by now is using ChatGPT to make their essays. I mean, who wouldn't? Yeah. Right. So how do you respond to this? Do you like, no, we're gonna forbid it because they have to learn how to think, or do you allow it as long as they use it in an intelligent, informed way? Yeah. And I'm rather for the second. I'm rather for allowing students to explore the possibilities that these machine learning processes have to expand the possibilities in their minds. Yeah. I always prefer to understand AI not as a competition, but AI as a tool that allows to enhance our capabilities as humans. Yeah. It's like a magic potion. Yeah, that basically gives us superpowers, like Asterix and Obelix. Yeah.
So
like a
tool. It is a tool at the end of the day. Yes. The only difference being that the only difference to older tools like a hammer or a screwdriver is that it is a tool that can learn, which is something new.
Right. So what you said is student can use it as a single or only part of the process of their design study, but they should do more of their own thing, right?
I mean, I think that definitely every architecture student has to learn the basics of what architecture actually is and how it is put together, and has to learn how to read a plan at least. Yeah.
Right.
But it's also a question at which point in the career as a student should they start using it, right? Maybe it's better to reduce the use in the undergrad so that they learn the basics of the architecture discipline thoroughly. And then in their masters, they basically can go into, yes, I want to specialize in using AI in my design.
But you think it's going to be like dependable?
The student will wait until grad study to use it.
No, I agree. I mean, I don't think they will do that. But at least like in the terms of the curriculum, you have to make clear that at some point they learn that you can use different line weights in a plan, for example, or that there is actually something like structural engineering. Those things are important for architects to understand more than just visually. They have to really, embrace it to understand that that's part of their job. Part of our job is make sure our buildings don't collapse. Yeah. And in order to do that, we have to have at least a minimum of structural engineering, math, if you want. I mean, I come from a background
knowledge of
basic knowledge.
Design,
I mean, yeah, and maybe even like mathematics would help because, for example, what if in the undergrad you replace certain things with properly learning to Python code, for example? Having a couple of hours of mathematics that explains how AI actually operates. Yeah. So understanding the tool set as well as we learn to understand, before that, other tools in architecture. Like no one uses Letraset anymore or ink to draw plans, right? I said this before. So things change over time. And maybe a good preparation for the next generation would be to learn very early already how to use Python, how to Python code, because that's the language you use today creatively.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, but also about the ethical issue, which
Mhm.
is architectural education. What
Yes.
kind of ethical issue do you come up? Do you
I
have
mean, I talk with my
faced?
students. Yeah, I talk with my students a lot. I have this AI seminar. And in this AI seminar, we talk a lot about the ethical implications of using AI. And one thing we discuss a lot is data collection, because data collection is probably the one thing that brings along most of the problems in terms of ethics. For example, if you have a data set that does not have a single image from Thailand, you will not have anything that you can generate that will be somehow
that will
compatible with your
represent
culture.
Thailand.
Yes, representation.
It's called biased, the data set.
Yes, exactly.
Which
So we talk a lot about these
journey.
things.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question.
Thanks.
In the near future, what tool and skill set will be most valuable to designer or architect?
What tool set?
The skill set.
Tool or skill
Skill
set.
set.
Yeah, skill set.
I just mentioned before, start learning Python.
Python. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Teach
Okay.
that at the graduate study, but not the undergrad. So you think we
I
should
think
go
maybe
Python?
I think undergrads should start learning Python already. First semester.
First semester. Okay.
Yeah.
Let me think about
it's like today is like learning to write. You have to do it early. The earlier you do it, the more the easier it gets to you.
Architectural school will have to really think about it. Like we have to become halfway programmer, halfway architect.
Yeah, I mean, also
in
think
this
about
age of
it.
AI.
Even if I say Python, it's not only useful for AI. I mean, you can write your own code for grasshopper definitions. You can write your own code for data analysis. You can write your own code for solar analysis optimization and all of that. So it's not necessarily just for AI. It's for a ton of different things in architecture.
Of course.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Next question. What kind of AI technologies or tool will arrive soon for architectural design process?
Soon.
Can you repeat that, please?
What kind of AI technology or tools will arrive soon for the architectural design process?
I honestly, I probably cannot say that, because I'm pretty sure that those large companies that already are making software for architecture uses, they're probably working like crazy in the background to get those into their software. Yeah. But I have no specific examples for that, and I don't know what they're working on. For me, actually, I think the more interesting tools are things like GitHub, Google Colab, like these cloud computing solutions that allow me to do my AI work. It's not specific software.
So there
again,
are a lot of
learn
them.
Python.
Thanks.
Same answer.
Okay, next one. Could you provide specific example how AI can optimize the energy efficiency and resource use in building project? Wow.
That would be like a whole lecture.
Okay, let's have another webinar.
Look at my lecture. Look at my lecture when I come.
Okay.
All right. Okay, next one. How AI can be used to create the flood resilience. They talk about
I don't understand this question. It's about the city.
Flood resilience.
The flood.
No, flood resilience. I mean, that's a good question. You have to I'm gonna try again. This would be a whole lecture, so I'm gonna try to keep it short. You have to think that we have climate data, and we have a lot of climate data.
Right.
Yeah, and the cool thing is it's all available for free online. Yeah, so you can use it in your AI research.
Right.
Once you have that amount of climate data, and you combine it, for example, with what I mentioned before, which is prediction. Right? You use an energy-based model, for example, to predict how prone to flooding certain areas in the city are. And these predictions can be quite precise. Yeah. So once you have those predictions, you can respond as, for example, the city government to say, we cannot build here and here and here, because in those areas, there is a probability that we will have flooding in the next 10 years or so. Yeah. which will destroy everything. So you can respond in two ways. You can say, like, city government can say, we cannot build here, because these are in danger of being flooded. Or the other one would be, how do we respond to climate change by reducing carbon dioxide and so on? And maybe also by building dams and things like that in certain areas to reduce the risk of flooding. So this is a good example where you can combine existing data about climate plus prediction abilities of AI to really create a policy.
You give me some point, like we should use AI to create something like a detention pond or space management. Like not all the space can be managed at the same thought and level, right? So some area that maybe have a risk on the flooding, maybe they have to build something more spacious and leaving some of the area for the detention, something like that.
Right.
Okay. The last one in my hand here. Have you foreseen the case of automated design process when the user work with AI tool to create his or her desired building without working with an architect?
Automated design process when a user works with AI tool without architect. Is that possible? When it becomes like totally automated and
totally
we don't need
automated
architects anymore.
Okay. There's like you have to differentiate between two forms of architecture here. You have to say, like, one being the common, off-the-mill, off-the-shelf, simple architectural solution that has been built already like a million times. You probably can automatize that with no problem. That would be I'm not going to say it's easy, but you can automatize that. Now, the other end of the spectrum, where it is about architectural sensibility, aesthetics, culture, material understanding, understanding of the space, spatial, of the psychological impact of architecture, of the philosophical ideas behind it, like all the things that make really interesting architecture. I don't think that you can automatize this entirely, because this relies a lot on strange things that happen in our mind that we do not understand entirely yet. So all those things in an architect's mind, all those different things collide somehow. And then it explodes into an amazing project, right? And I think that this is hard. This is very hard to make artificial. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very hard. However, I still think that what machine learning can do for an architect in that process is that it serves almost like an accelerator. It's like the bang becomes bigger, the ideas are maybe stronger. So again, using AI as a tool that enhances your possibilities as an architect. Don't think it's something that can replace you. Use it for you. Don't be afraid of it.
I just talked to a friend who is non-computerized at anyway. She's a lecturer, Faculty of Architecture, and that, however, she has a very special skill set to deal with people, to understand users' need, to deal with different group of people. She's a good deal maker. And and just recently I saw another video about AI that the lecturer came up with a quadrant of what AI is good at, is not good at, and what people is good at and not good at, And she happens to be in the quadrant where AI is not good at, but human is good at it, like dealing with people, with emotion, with some underlying social layer that you cannot tap with computer. So I think that's the role of an architect that AI cannot do, right? They still need human to do it. Or you think? Not
It
that AI can
depends. It
solve
depends.
all the problems in the world for you.
No, no. Again, we're in the first couple of steps
Mhm.
towards really using AI properly, no matter if it's AI or any other discipline.
Mhm.
It's impossible to predict right now how the impact will really be. We're on the right track. We're just on the right, and we need to see where it's going. But one thing I would say, I like the idea of this quadrant, but I also have to say that we are early enough in the process that we as architects can still shape it. Yeah. And that's what I would say also to your friend. It's basically that despite the fact that there has been so much news and media coverage about the dangers of AI doing this or that, I wouldn't believe even half of it, because most of it is just designed. Look, most of this news, like what is AI good in and what is a human good in and so on, these questions, I'm not even sure if it's relevant. I don't think it's relevant, actually. I think you need to understand that how about making less walls between different intelligences and rather make it more transparent. Like, for example, I don't know if you've heard about this book, Ways of Being by James Bridle.
No.
So in this book, basically, he talks about the different intelligences that already exist on our world, right? And it's incredibly exciting because it's not only a human intelligence. There's animal intelligence, plant intelligence, even geological intelligence.
Intelligence.
Yeah? It's incredible. It's incredible. You have to read this. It's an amazing book. Yeah? And it makes you much more open-minded to understanding that humans are not unique. Yeah. And once you understand that we're not unique, you can also think that, well, if we're not unique, then AI is also not unique. It's just also another part of this intelligence on this planet. Yeah. Which, if we start to think this way about the world, I think it's a really interesting and positive way to think about the world, because once you understand that you are sharing the world with other intelligences, you might start to take a little bit more care about the world. Yeah. Because then it means you're not dominating the world. Humans are not dominating the world. It's a whole set of different
melting pot of all the intelligence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it makes you maybe understand that you're not so unique and you're not supposed to rule the world. Yeah. And once you do that, you might really pay attention to the world a bit more than you do.
So in your idea, we are still far from artificial intelligence singularity.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Dr. Walaipon, do you have any more questions? I think we are at the end.
I have a lot more questions, but let me meet him in person and let's discuss with this.
Yes, let's have a coffee and talk more.
Okay, yeah, over coffee.
Yeah. For the audience, this is your last chance. If you have anything, you can drop your question in the chat box now. Oh, okay. Here we go. Oh my God, that's a long question. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Ta-da. Let me read it for you. Oh shit, I can't see it.
I can read it for you.
Oh, yeah, please.
Hi, Prof. Matias. Thank you for your insight. I do research on machine learning for structural design optimization. I'm particularly interested when you mention inclusiveness concerning different aspects of architecture. Could you elaborate more on how you achieved it, such as combining different data sources in the latent space, etc.? Also, could you elaborate more on what kinds of features in a data set of building structure will be useful for the research community?
Thank you. That's a great question. So in terms of inclusiveness, what we try to do, we're still not completely finished, but we're building a data set that is apartment plans from around the world. It's called the Common House, data set. And it has apartment plans. And the idea was we try to create a diverse data set so that we were trying to reduce the dominance of European and American apartment plans in that data set. So we basically sent out several times calls to around the world for people to annotate plans and upload them. We created like our own interface. It's all online. So you go to this website, you can upload a plan and you can start labeling the plan. Yeah. And I'm highly thankful to the many, many people who responded and also volunteered to send us plans. I think this was amazing. But it's still, nonetheless, despite our really honest and strong attempts to make this data set as diverse as possible, and we only have 2,000 plans. 2,000 plans is not a lot. It's enough to work with it, yeah, but it's not a lot. I have also to say that this was the idea, like this is how we wanted to create this very diverse data set. I also have to say that I think in parts we failed, because I saw the statistics recently of the data set, and I had to see that 3/4 of the plans in the data set are still American and European. But at least 1/4 is not, which is better than other data sets. Yeah.
Okay.
So in short, it's an effort that takes time and energy, and but I think it's worth it.
You're working on it.
We have to do it. We're working on it, and we have to do it. And the same would be, for example, for a data set about structural engineering. If we have the numbers, for example, if you have the numbers, the loads, for example, on a structure, yeah, they are always numbers, and it's basically there's a norm worldwide. Basically, how do you describe structural loads in math? It's norm. So if we get those numbers, and we know this is a structure that was optimized for this application, this is a structure that was optimized for that application, that already is a form of annotation in the data set. Yeah. For us, the most important part is that there is some form of annotation. I know that there's unsupervised learning where you don't need annotation, but the problem with unsupervised learning and architecture is unsupervised learning only works if you have tons and tons of data. Yeah.
Okay.
Which in architecture is not the case.
To be supervised.
So, I mean, I would be happy about any form of data I get, whether it's BIM models or math or numbers or Excel sheets that have numbers in them about different load cases, for example. Images, of course, we can use, like all of these things are useful for us. Yeah. The problem only is that after we're already doing this, and after we get the data, very often we need to put in a lot of work to organize the data, get it into the right labeling discipline and so on. So, but it doesn't matter. That's why we have the lab. That's why I'm also trying to get more funding for the lab so we can pay people to do that.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I have to go. I have an interview in a minute.
Okay. I think we already ended up of this section. I think tonight we learned a lot from Dr. Matias, and I think we are overwhelmed by your thought and ideas. And probably we can see you in Bangkok in a couple of months.
For sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
For sure.
Thank you, Matthias.
Thank you. Thanks for the invitation.
Time. Yeah.
Thank you, everyone,
Looking
to join
forward to
in
seeing
this
you
meeting.
in Bangkok.
Okay, and
See you.
See you guys.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
ขอบคุณมากครับ
Yeah.